Victory Kids Quest. Man, what a hot weekend. What in the world happened to this weather? Well, you guys can see I am outside and it is very hot, but we have this amazing shade tree in my front yard, so it's really shady for me right now. And it's still kind of early, but man, I can't believe the heat we're having right at the end of the summer, right? You guys, I love the song that we opened up with this week. Just like last week, I know you know already what we're going to talk about by just hearing the song that played, but we're going to continue learning about and talking about ways that we can trust God. Now, remember last week I talked to you about how it's so important for us right now to learn how to trust God the best that we can with all the changes, because we are feeling changes at home, changes with school, and now even changes with our church, where our church is going to meet. Look right here, we're meeting underneath my tree today, right? Who would have thought, right? But that's awesome. Thank God for all these different changes and blessings and new beginnings and new journeys that He's given us. And you might want to know, why is there a bicycle sitting here? Well, we're going to talk about that in our lesson in just a minute. But before our lesson, I have a special video that I want to show you guys. Mr. Josh has this video ready to go, and it gives you an idea of what our new church building is going to look like. Even a special place and space in there that's just for us to hang out and to have fun and to learn our lessons each Sunday. So we wanted to take time to show you guys the video of what our new church building is going to look like. You know, if you drive by our church building right now, you're going to see a humongous blue fence around the whole property, because even this week they've already started working to start getting that ready for us. So you guys tune into this video, and then as soon as we come back, I'm going to tell you what this bicycle is here for. We're going to have a lesson on trusting God, and then we're going to have a really fun virtual way of retelling the story. So I'll see you in just a minute. Think about that. Isn't that going to be amazing. We're going to have a huge multi-level building. It's beautiful, it's big, it's bright, it's new. And what about those amazing spaces upstairs that will be reserved just for us? Kids Quest to hang out, to have fellowship, learn, game center. It's going to be a great new journey for us, and I'm so excited. You guys, with these changes, we talked a little bit about last week how we need to trust God in these changes, because like we said, we don't always like change, and that is okay. That's a normal and a natural feeling. But what is important is that even in these changes we don't like, or if we do like them, to remain focused on trusting God and His plan. Just because our circumstances, the things that are around us, change, doesn't mean that God changes. Just because our circumstances and those things that surround us change, doesn't mean that God's plan and purpose He has for you and I change, right? God knows the big purpose. He knows the big plan. He sees it till the very end of our life, till the very end of our journey. You know, last week I talked about how easy it is to trust things. We trust the light switch to come on. I'm trusting this camera to work. I'm trusting that when I open a nice refreshing bottle of water, it's actually water and not lemonade or something, right? But we talked about how sometimes it's difficult to trust God. When I think about trusting people and learning how to trust, I always think about, who did we learn to trust first when we were kids? Well, I know for pretty much all of us, the first people we learned to trust as kids were our parents, right? We learned to trust our parents, and that's why we have a bicycle here, right? How many of you guys know how to ride a bicycle? Right? I'm going to tell you a secret. I know sometimes I share secrets about Miss Vicky, and sometimes you guys might not believe them, or sometimes maybe you do believe them. But can you guys guess that I do not know how to ride a bicycle? It's true. It is the weirdest thing ever, but I never could get it as a kid, as a teenager, and I surely couldn't get it as an adult. From time to time, I try it again and again, but it just does not work ever. But you know, my husband, my kids, you know, Mr. Josh, Lyric Mariah, they love riding their bikes. In fact, even this morning, early before it got hot, they went out on a long bike ride. They love it, right? But we learn how to trust our parents when we're small. And one example of that is when your parents taught you how to ride a bicycle, right? They knew you were ready. They knew you were ready to get there, and they put on those little training wheels, right? Most of you guys started out with little training wheels. And they get you going, and you're ready, and then they let you go, right? And maybe you were nervous, and maybe you were scared, and maybe you're like, no, don't let go. Whatever you do, don't let go, right? But they wouldn't let go if they didn't think that you were ready. And they used these exact words. They used, trust me, just trust me and go, right? And so we would, because their mom or their dad, or maybe they were grandma or grandpa, and we trusted them. And then we realized, wow, I can do it. And we were so excited, and we felt so happy and so good about it. Now, what about the day when the day came to take the training wheels off? Oh my goodness, that was going to be a whole other new adventure and new journey. And maybe you were nervous, maybe you were scared, but the same conversation comes again, right? Just trust me, you can do it, you're ready, I'll be right here. I'll hold on to the back for you. You guys remember those times? Remember those days? I do as a child. I do even as an adult when my friends would try and help me, right? And so you're ready to go, and you're on that bicycle, and your mom or your dad is right there, and you're scared, and maybe you're crying, and they're like, no, just trust me. You're ready for this. I'll hold on to the seat. I'll hold on to the handlebar. I'll be right there by your side. And you realize once you trusted them, once you believed them, you could do it. And remember how good you felt and how proud you were that you could do it, right? That is exactly the trust that God is talking to us about when He wants us to trust Him, right? He's right there by your side. He's not going to let you go. He believes that you can do it. He knows you're ready, and He's right there by you during all of your days, all of your journeys, all of your new experiences, your scary experiences, your happy experiences. God is right there wanting us to trust Him. There's a Bible story that I absolutely love in the Bible, and it's about 3 young boys. And those young boys were originally from Israel, but they had been, they're part of the Israel where they lived had been taken over by a really, at that time, wicked king named Nebuchadnezzar. right? Long name, Nebuchadnezzar. And he was a world power. He lived in the country of Babylon, and they were ruling over different cities, countries, and lands. Powerful, powerful kingdom. And he was coming into this part of Israel and making captive these young boys and these young men to make them slaves, right? And so that they would have to work for him, building the palaces, building all of these remarkable buildings that he wanted built. And so these three dudes, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they get taken over into Babylon. And they were made slaves, and they worked for the king. Now, not long after this time, the king had decided to have a huge group of men build this humongous statue that went way into the sky. And it was built of hard things like, hard stones and specialized metals and steel and iron. And then he had decided to have the whole thing covered in gold. He was the king. He had oodles and oodles of money, so he could, right? And he had this huge statue built in his image, so it looked like him. The problem is that he wanted all the people in his kingdom, near and far, to 3 times a day bow down and worship this statue. He was even going to have musicians play music, so when people would hear music, they would know, oh, it's time, wherever we're at, we're going to stop and bow down. Well, you know a problem with that, you guys. You're smart, you're intelligent. God has told us we don't bow down to idols. We don't bow down to men or women and worship them. Who do we worship? We worship God, the one true God, right? And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego knew right away, whoa, dude, this is not going to fly. We are so not going to do this. But then they heard the rest of the story. And the rest of the story was, well, if you don't want to do it, or if anyone refuses to do it, we're not just going to say, okay, no worries. You're going to get a punishment, and it's going to be a huge punishment. And in fact, that punishment is going to be death by fire. Now, you might think it feels really hot out here this weekend, but it's nothing like a building of fire. And that's what it was. It was a furnace building filled with fire. And the king was serious, and he made sure that his men let everybody in the kingdom know, if you don't want to bow down and worship this, then you are going to be put into this furnace of fire. Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had a choice to make. Just like you had a choice to make when you were a little kid to trust your parent holding this bicycle to teach you how to ride a bicycle, right? They knew, we have to trust God, because we're not going to disobey him. We're not going to bow down, and we're going to trust that God keeps us safe. Well, the day came where they're having this huge dedication, right? All the people are gathered there. Tons of people are gathered there. The king's out there, and they're having this big dedication ceremony to the huge statue he had built of him. And the music played, and everybody bowed down on their face to the ground, except for 3 people. And you know who they were, right? Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. And a guard actually goes over thinking, oh, they must have not heard. Maybe they don't understand what they're supposed to do. So the guard tries to explain to them, you're supposed to bow down now, worship the statue. And they said, no, we know what we're supposed to do, but we're not going to do that. We are to only bow down and worship the King of Kings, right? The God of Israel, our Lord of Lords. And again, the guard tries to give them a way out and tries to help them. And he tells them, you know what's going to happen if you don't do this? And they understood it. And so more guards come over, and they actually take Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over to the king, King Nebuchadnezzar. And they tell him, these boys are refusing to bow down. They know what they're supposed to do. We've told them what to do, and they refuse to do it. So the king now asks them one more time, you need to do it now, or you're going to be put into the fiery furnace. And I love what these boys said, because listen close, you guys. They said this, we believe and we trust that God will protect us. And even if God chooses that we die in this furnace of fire, we're going to be with him in heaven today. We are trusting in him. Well, this didn't make the king very happy. You can imagine he felt like they were being disrespectful and talking back. So you know what happened. They get cast into this fiery furnace. And what is amazing is, as the king's looking in through this opening in the door, he sees those 3 boys walking around in that furnace, but he also sees a 4th body. And he yells for the guards, guards, open the door quick. Someone else got in. Didn't we throw 3 in? But there's 4. I see 4 people. And they open the door up, and they yell for the boys to come out. And when they come out, this is where the miracle happened, you guys, where they trusted God. Because not only were they not burned, one, they were alive. They weren't even burned. Their clothes and their hair didn't even smell like smoke. It was like they had never walked in there. And the king's asking them, who was the fourth person in? I saw a fourth person. Who was it? And they said, well, that was an angel that God sent that was likened unto the Son of God. It was Jesus in that fiery furnace with them, protecting them, walking with them, right? Talking with them, keeping them safe. The king couldn't believe it. And that was the day that King Nebuchadnezzar's heart changed. Because you know what the Bible tells us? That from that day, he made a decree, he made a new law, that not only should his idol not be worshipped, but no other gods, no other idol should be worshipped. That the people would now start worshiping only the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. He said, we're going to worship the God of Israel, the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You guys trust God. These three boys trusted God with their lives because they knew that was the right thing to do. If they trusted God with such a big circumstance that was in their life, we can trust God with our circumstances. You guys, I love you so much. I want you to stay tuned because I have a fun little 5-minute retelling of the story that I know you guys are going to love. And then I will see you next week. Have a great week at home. Have a great week with your friends and family, and have a great week at school. I love you. Bye.
It's time for a Bible story. A long time ago in the land of Israel, there lived 3 young guys named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Whoa, hold on, wait a minute. What are those names? Did you say their names were Sad Rat, Mean Hat, and a Bendy Goat?
No, not even close. Their names were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they were some pretty solid dudes. They loved God with all their heart, and things were going pretty well for them. Until one day, all of that changed.
Wait, let me guess what happened. They were taken from their homeland by an invading army.
Well, actually, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Do you know the story already?
Whoa, really? Crazy. That was just a random guess. What are the odds of that, huh?
Well, you're right. Israel was invaded by the wicked King Nebuchadnezzar.
Whoa, that stinks. And double whoa, because the names in this story are crazy.
I know, right? King Nebuchadnezzar invaded their country and took a bunch of people captive, and then brought them back to his home country called Babylon.
Hold up. Okay. I know the names in this story are a little wonky, but you gotta be kidding me. He was from a place called Babyland? That sounds awesome. An entire country full of adorable babies? Actually, that doesn't sound awesome. I bet it smelled like a giant diaper. Ugh.
No, not Babyland. It was called Babylon, and I'm sure it smelled just fine.
Gotcha. So what happened when they got to Babylon?
Well, they were trying to adjust to where they live now. I mean, one day they're chilling at home in Israel, and the next day they're in a totally different country. They didn't know anybody there, they don't speak the language, and on top of all that, they were forced to work as slaves.
Yikes, that is pretty rough, man. I bet they were like so super scared. I mean, they're in a completely different country, they don't know anybody, they're completely on their own. Man, I would be totally freaked out.
Actually, they didn't freak out. They knew God was with them, so they kept on like they had before. Every day they would pray and worship God.
Hey, that's great to hear. Sounds like things could turn around, huh?
Well, things did change, but not really in the way that you might expect. One day, King Nebuchadnezzar decided to have a huge statue of himself built. He wanted it to be 90 feet tall and made out of gold.
Seriously, a 90-foot golden statue of himself? Man, what a waste of a statue. I'd rather have a 90-foot gold statue of something awesome, like a really fat hamster. Oh, or like a unicorn playing guitar.
I agree. Those would be pretty sweet. But no, he wanted it to be of himself. And once the statue was built, he ordered people from all around to come and see it. He had musicians set up all around the statue and gave the order that when they started to play, everyone would bow down and worship him.
Okay, that's a little weird. So what does this have to do with our 3 amigos exactly?
Well, that's where things get interesting. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were some of the people that were ordered to come and see the statue. But, as you can imagine, they weren't very interested in worshiping King Nebuchadnezzar. They only worshiped God.
So what happened?
Just like the king ordered, the band kicked in and everybody bowed down to the statue except for 3 people. You want to guess who?
Larry, Curly, and Moe.
Swing and a miss. It was actually Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And as you can imagine, the king was not very happy with them disobeying his orders. But he liked Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, so he gave them a second chance to change their minds and worship him. The band kicked in again, everybody else bowed down, but
Let me guess, they didn't bow.
no siree, Bob.
Yeesh, I bet he really did not like that.
No, he did not. King Nebuchadnezzar was furious that they had refused to worship him, but they held firm and told the king that they would only worship the one true God.
Oh boy, I bet they got punished pretty bad, huh? What'd they get, like 1,000,000 spankings?
No, much worse than that. The king's guards grabbed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and took them to a huge fiery furnace, a giant oven with flames blazing out all over it.
Good grief, that thing is no joke. It's gotta be like 1,000,000 degrees, or like a bazillion Celsius, or like 5 Kelvin.
Well, look at you, Mr. Science. And yes, it was very hot. The king decided to give them one more chance to bow down to him. And if they didn't, he was going to throw them into the fiery furnace.
Whoa, he was seriously gonna like kill him?
Straight up.
So what'd they do? I mean, did they just give in and bow down? I mean, listen, that would be totally understandable. I mean, look at that oven thing, man. They'd get roasted like marshmallows in there. That would be terrifying.
That's true. It was a pretty scary situation, but they trusted in God and they weren't afraid. They knew that God was more powerful than King Nebuchadnezzar, and if God was on their side, they didn't have to be afraid. So when the king said one last time to bow down, they refused.
Uh-oh, so did he throw him in the furnace?
Nope. Instead, the king ordered the furnace to be made 7 times hotter than it already was, and then throw them in.
What? How do you even do that? That's gotta be like as hot as the sun, or like an atomic bomb, or my new mixtape.
No. But it got so hot that when the guards opened the door, the heat was so strong that they were instantly killed.
Oh, look, the guards are dead. Now's your chance. Run for it, guys.
Well, there were other guards, kind of an expendable resource back then.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
So another set of guards grabbed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, dragged them over to the furnace, and threw them inside. King Nebuchadnezzar and everybody else watched as they closed the door and waited. But what happened next? Nobody ever expected. There in the furnace, in those blazing hot flames, stood 4 men.
Wait, what? They didn't die? Like an instant, terrible death of burning and dying?
Nope. The guards and King Nebuchadnezzar could not believe their eyes. There were 4 figures standing in the flames, totally fine.
Hold up, wait a second. There were 4 people? I thought you said they threw in 3 people. You know, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's only 3.
True, but there was a 4th person in the furnace with them. It was Jesus.
What?
Yep, Jesus was with them in the fiery furnace and protected them from the flames. King Nebuchadnezzar told them to come out, and they walked out completely unharmed. Their clothes didn't even smell like smoke.
That is incredible. So that's why they weren't afraid of the king, huh? They trusted in God so much and knew that he would be with them when the times got tough.
Exactly. That day, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego showed King Nebuchadnezzar and everyone in Babylon that God was with them, and no matter what came their way, they didn't have to fear.
That is totally stinking awesome.
You bet. The end.